Westwind Web Monitor is a small utility that monitors websites and lets you know when they're no longer working. What we're looking at here is the Westwind Web Monitor main screen, where we have multiple sites set up to be monitored. You can see that there are some sites that are working and some sites that are breaking. In order to set this up, what we do is we basically go ahead and create a new site or edit an existing site. So let's look at an existing site to see what we can set up. The first thing that you do is you specify a name for a site. Once you specify the name, you can then go ahead and configure the actual site. You can configure a URL to hit, and that URL is hit at a specific frequency, in this case 10 seconds. You can also specify a timeout for how long that request should take. The site can either be active or inactive to allow you to easily disable and enable sites that you want to monitor without having to delete it. There are also advanced HTTP options that allow you to set things like the HTTP verb, the content type, or custom HTTP headers and even content. With these advanced options, it's actually possible to monitor web services, REST services, or any kind of data that you need to send to an HTTP site. In order to determine whether a request is successful or not, you can basically specify a text string that should be matched. So in this case, I'm looking for the text string Westwind Technologies inside of this URL that was hit on the server. I can specify various options of how to search for this text or not search for this text by using this dropdown. In this case, I have it set to fail if text expression is not found, which means that if this text is not found in the response that comes back from this URL, it will fail. The other options are you can look to see if the text expression is found, which means you're waiting for something to happen and then notify you in some way, or fail if the regex expression is not found or found. So basically you get a lot of options for searching for content and detecting failure. In addition, Web Monitor will also fail if a request times out or if it doesn't respond with any responsive data. So if the request comes back with a 500 error from the server, that will of course also fail. Once a request has failed, you can also take actions. And the most common action that you'll want to take is to send an email to yourself or multiple people. So the way that this works is that you can specify a number of recipients, one per line here. So in this case, I have a simple email address, which is my temporary Hotmail account, and an SMS message on my phone. So most phone carriers like AT&T or Verizon have text addresses that you can send to. They're basically email addresses that you prefix with your phone number. And by specifying a star at the end, we're letting Web Monitor know that this is an SMS address to send messages to. We can also specify the sender address. So if we want to filter these messages in a certain way, we can do that in our inbox. You can then specify a site down failure message and a site backup failure message in order to specify how requests are actually sent. So in order to see this in action, let's see what happens here when we go in and actually make this break. So I told you that this expression down here, this text expression, has to match. So if I change this now to something that is no longer valid and check the site again, you notice that it fails immediately. We see the failure happen here, and basically this should have now actually sent an email. So if I go to my Hotmail account, I need to log in. And look at my email addresses here, there should now be a notification at 1:46 that tells me that the site Westwind Technologies is down. And then it tells me that it came from this URL at this time and that the content search string was not found in the response. And then it gives me the entire response, which is very useful if you want to find out what actually went on. Now in this case, I simply faked the failure, so there's nothing to see here. I know it's just the HTML page. But if there was actually a server failure of some sort, the error message would actually show up here. And you could possibly take further action based on that. An SMS message is also sent at the same time. Now in this case this failed because the SMS message wasn't real, but the SMS message is a lot more terse and only contains the information that is basically relevant, which is the URL that was hit, the time that it was hit, and the message. Everything else is omitted from the SMS message, but you can also check your email to always find out more information. There's also information in the logs that provide the same information. So if you want to look at the error logs, you can click here and actually see the error information in a nicer format. Or you can look at the error log, the detail log, to see all the requests that actually went through. In addition to taking action via email, you can also actually fire real actions on the computer that WebMonitor is running on. So you can actually make it send an HTTP request. So I can go to send a request here to some URL on my site. Equals, what is this? This is Westwind Technologies. Okay. So I can hit a URL like this and actually let my site know, or some other entity outside of WebMonitor know that something has failed. The other option is I can just say, actually run some sort of batch file or exe file or anything that you can fire in the command shell and have it actually perform some action in response. So there's more than just passively receiving these messages. You can actually take a real action in response to a failure with WebMonitor. In addition, WebMonitor also supports plugins via .NET languages. So you can actually create a plugin that can take part in the actual request processing and handle failures, as well as actually sending out requests in special ways to fire against certain URLs. The plugin module is very, very rich, and it allows you to extend WebMonitor with a lot of features. In addition, there is some configuration that goes into WebMonitor that allows you to set the global values. So basically, some of these were previously set. So you notice that email was actually sent, but I actually have to configure my mail server in order to do so. So I have to specify the mail server, the username and password for that mail server, and whether it uses an SSL connection. Can also specify a default sender name and default email addresses, which are automatically applied to each new site that you create. Can also go update all sites, so all sites can now be set automatically to these two values. And then individual sites can overwrite these values. Can also specify a failure retry, which allows me the ability to basically specify that when a request fails for the first time, don't consider it failed until it checks again 8 seconds later and then actually fails hard. This means that you don't send out emails immediately on the first failure, but rather wait a little bit until you are sure that it has failed twice in a row. This avoids false positives and makes it much easier to work with. So this is kind of the basic tour of WebMonitor. There's a lot more features here. We've just looked at the interactive interface. There's also a service interface that allows you to run as a service. And that is actually activated by clicking simply this button. So if you're buying the service version, you can actually start and stop the service this way. So now WebMonitor in the background is actually running as a Windows service. So if we go to Services, oh, interesting. Okay, here we go, View Local Services. And we bring that in over here and we find Westwind WebMonitor. So here now is a Windows service that runs in the background using these same values that we're using here. And we can control the service from here. So we can start and stop the service. The service is stopped. And I can also put it back into these various operating modes. So when I switch into a different operating mode, the Windows service is actually removed. There's also a web interface that is available, but it's too much to cover in this short tutorial. If you're interested in that, go ahead and watch the more detailed tutorial that goes through step by step and watch that. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you give WebMonitor a try. Thank you.